I am Susan Sharp Campbell, the Associate for Educational Ministry for the Presbytery of West Virginia, and this is an overview of the fall stated meeting of the Presbytery, which will be held Thursday, November 16th at Old Stone Presbyterian Church in Lewisburg, beginning at 10 a.m. The advance packet for this meeting can be found at www.wvpresbytery.org. Please read it in advance of the meeting so that when we gather, we can be about the work to which God calls us as a presbytery. Please also be aware that we are no longer printing packets for everyone. If you would like to have a printed packet to pick up at registration, please call the Presbytery office at 304-744-7634 or email office@wvpresbytery.org. Otherwise, you will need to download the packet in advance for viewing on a phone or tablet during the meeting, as there's not enough bandwidth to use Wi-Fi during the meeting for the packet or for any other purpose other than presentations. There are 3 core values of the Presbytery which underlie all of our work. These are ministry, supporting our churches; mission, serving our communities; and building relationships with God and one another. Some of the people to note at this meeting include our moderator, who is Susan Perry, a ruling elder from the First Presbyterian Church in Logan, our general presbyter, who is Ed Thompson, and our stated clerk, who is Maureen Wright. The order of the meeting is as follows. After greetings from the pastor of the host church, we will have the first of several brief times throughout the day to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Presbytery of West Virginia. Then Doug Ports, the Board of Pensions church consultant in our region, will bring greetings from the Board of Pensions. We will then move into an order of the day, which is our education focus. An order of the day means that at the time designated on the docket, we will take up that item, even if we have to go back to the item currently under consideration. The education focus for this meeting will be post-Christendom missionaries and will be led by John Vest, visiting professor of evangelism at Union Presbyterian Seminary. Following the education focus, Nellie Howard, our Resource Center Director, will share some of the newer resources in the Resource Center. You may also want to visit her display for a variety of other resources, all of which can be checked out during the meeting. The morning will conclude with worship, including the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. Please note that all of the communion bread will be gluten-free. Following lunch, we will continue with the business of the Presbytery. We will welcome new ministers of Word and Sacrament in the Presbytery, seat corresponding members, who are those ministers of Word and Sacrament laboring within our bounds, but who are members of other presbyteries. We will introduce any visiting ministers and recognize ruling elders who are attending Presbytery for the first time. This will also be the time to indicate that a quorum is present. For us, a quorum is 20% of the minister members and 20% of our churches represented by a ruling elder. Following the approval of the docket, the consent agenda will be under consideration. The consent agenda includes those items that the people planning the meeting anticipate will not generate further discussion. However, if there's an item on the consent agenda that anyone wants to remove from the consent agenda so that it may be discussed later in the meeting, it will be removed, and then will come up again during the corresponding report later in the day. Items on the consent agenda for Thursday include excused absences, terms of call for 2 installed pastors, covenants and covenant renewals for commissioned ruling elders, or CREs as they're commonly called, and ministers from other denominations serving our congregations. Other items on the consent agenda will be approving moderators in churches without a minister of Word and Sacrament, as it's the responsibility of the presbytery to make provision for a moderator when there's no installed moderator. Approval for authorized lay preachers to preside at communion. As a reminder, authorized lay preachers, or ALPs, are those who have completed the ALP CRE preparation program, but who are not commissioned to particular churches. Approval for 3 of our ministers of Word and Sacrament to be honorably retired after a number of years of service in our presbytery. Approval of the ministry of a college chaplain as a validated ministry, meaning this is a ministry beyond the jurisdiction of the church by a member of the presbytery. And there's also a request to approve that she be authorized to administer the sacrament of communion. The final item on the consent agenda is that our offering will go to Presbyterian disaster assistance for communities affected by crisis and catastrophic events. The final two items on this portion of the business meeting will be the appointment of temporary clerks. They are the ones who will hand out materials during the meeting as needed and count any votes other than voice votes. And also the appointment of standing committee on bills and overtures, which would consist of leadership team members who were present, who would review any new business that was proposed to come before the body and make recommendation. Please be aware that any new business must be given to the stated clerk prior to lunch. We will then move into reports of presbytery staff and committees. These reports usually consist of two parts: recommendations that must be voted on by the presbytery, and information that is shared with the presbytery. The stated clerk's report contains information on correspondence that she has received and action that has been taken on it. This report also notes that minutes of 3 administrative commissions to install pastors have been received, and 1 minister's membership has been transferred. On pages 6 and 7 of the clerk's report, you will find rolls and registers of the Presbytery of West Virginia. This report also indicates that session records for 2 churches have been reviewed. If your church's session records for 2016 have not yet been reviewed, you may want to be in touch with Maureen about getting them to her. It's at this point in the meeting that procedural matters will be reviewed. These can be found on page 8 in the packet and in a separate video, as they tend to stay the same from meeting to meeting. Please remember that anyone speaking on the floor of presbytery shall address their comments to the moderator, not to those sitting in the pews, nor to others who have spoken before them. Also, please remember that all speakers should use the microphone and introduce themselves. The report of the General Presbyter gives you an overview of the work that Ed Thompson has been doing and his reflections on it. Sue Wonderland is the transitional executive of the Synod of the Trinity, and she will be with us to bring greetings as we celebrate our anniversary. We come now to that portion of the agenda largely dedicated to committee reports. Again, these will contain recommendations and information. It might also be helpful for you to know that recommendations from committees do not require a second, as by implication, they've already been reviewed, and the members of the committee believe that it should be considered by the presbytery as a whole. The leadership team will be presenting names of 3 persons to be nominated to the presbytery's nominating committee. The leadership team is also asking that presbytery assume original jurisdiction for a judicial matter in one of our congregations, which has asked for the presbytery to do so. This means that on this particular matter, the presbytery will act in place of the session. Also, please don't forget to read the items of information in the leadership team and other committees' reports. At the August Presbytery meeting, the Presbytery adopted a budget on the recommendation of the Stewardship Committee. At this meeting, the Stewardship Committee is recommending that that budget be amended to include funding for a part-time Bluestone program director. You will find the rationale for this position and how it's come about on page 15 in the Presbytery packet. The amended budget can be found on pages 17 to 19. Pages 20 to 27 contain the financial status of the presbytery at the end of the 3rd quarter of this year. Other pages with financial information are pages 28 to 30, which contain information regarding shared mission and per capita giving per church through the end of September. Take a few moments and find your church's information. Is it what you thought it should be? Page 31 contains financial information for Bluestone Camp. Most, if not all, of the ministry committee's recommendations will have been approved on the consent agenda. However, there are 2 additional items which they will be recommending to the presbytery to act on, both having to do with forming administrative commissions to inquire into the life and ministry of 2 of our congregations concerning their ministry and mission. As set forth in the Book of Order, part of our Constitution, says, Presbytery has a particular responsibility to coordinate, guide, encourage, support, and resource the work of its congregations for the most effective witness to the broader community, including assuming original jurisdiction when it determines that a session cannot exercise its authority and carry on the congregation's ministry and mission. That can be found in G3.0303. As part of the Ministry Committee report, the ministers who were approved as honorably retired will be recognized. Finally, on pages 37 to 42, you will find the biographies and faith statements of our newest minister members, Laura Brecky, chaplain at Davis and Elkins College, Christian Johnson, Associate Pastor of First Presbyterian Church, Charleston, and Rich Cardo, Pastor of the Valley Parish. The Mission Committee's recommendation for the offering most likely will be approved as part of the consent agenda. Please note under items for information their work with mission trips and mission grants. The nominating committee will be recommending a chairperson for the Relations Committee. Other committee chairs were elected at the August Presbytery meeting. We'll also be nominating a number of persons to serve as members of Presbytery committees other than the nominating committee. There may be other recommendations for committee members in addition to those listed in the advance packet. Once the recommendations are made, there will be opportunities for nominations from the floor for each position. Persons who are nominated from the floor must have agreed prior to being nominated to serve if elected. Good news from the pews is an opportunity for ruling elders and ruling elders only to share some of the exciting things that have been happening in their congregations. The intent behind this is that perhaps someone else will hear what your church is doing and find ideas and inspiration in what you share. If you are your session's ruling elder commissioner and would like to share, please be prepared to do so in a fairly concise manner and direct your remarks to the moderator using the microphone. The Nurture Committee's report highlights the availability of persons trained to assist congregations with their child protection policies. It also shares upcoming events sponsored by the Nurture Committee on behalf of the Presbytery. The Minute for Stewardship is an opportunity for the Stewardship Committee to provide training and support to pastors, sessions, and congregations in the area of stewardship. The trustees of the Presbytery are responsible for the management of the property of the Presbytery that has been entrusted to us. While their report indicates that they are recommending the sale of the Rock Forge Presbyterian Church manse, please be aware that they will not be doing so as the purchase agreement has fallen through. You will also find additional information in their report on the status of several properties around the Presbytery. The Vocations Committee, though it doesn't have a written report, will be highlighting a new authorized lay preacher commissioned ruling elder preparation program beginning in September 2018. Consider whether God might be calling you or someone you know and might encourage to this ministry. Some Presbytery committees have provided written reports only for this meeting since they don't have items to be voted upon. These include the Bluestone Committee and Relations Committee. But please don't overlook the information they provide as part of the work of the Presbytery. One additional written report is that of the Committee on Representation, which advises Presbytery regarding the implementation of principles of unity and diversity. Their annual report is part of the packet and presented for information. Following committee reports, the moderator and committee chairs for 2018 will be installed. Any new business that was introduced before lunch will be considered, and the meeting will conclude with a final celebration of our 30th anniversary. You will find a great deal of information in the advance packet and at the meeting. Ruling elder commissioners and or ministers of word and sacrament are expected to communicate the work of the Presbytery at this meeting at their next session meeting. Please note events and other information that are taking place and share these with your session. At the end of the packet, you'll find flyers on the 2018 Expanding Your Ministry Toolbox courses and dates, Presby Prep, which is the first year of the ALP CRE preparation program, and Hunger Action Grants. Our hope is that you will print these and share them with your session and with your congregation. One final note. As we gather, we do so trusting that God's Spirit is among us and that our task is to discern the will of God as we make decisions as we are led by that Spirit. I encourage you to come to the meeting with the packet read and with an openness to God's Spirit and a willingness to listen as the Spirit may be speaking in the words of those with whom we gather. The meeting will conclude with a charge and benediction by the moderator. And before leaving, please complete the feedback form and put them and your name tags in the bags or boxes as you exit. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday.